Two HBCUs made the FCS coaches top 25 preseason poll. One I expected, and the other one kind of caught me off guard. Oh, yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off, it doesn't mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusions. Starts with an S, ends with an S. Today's episode, come on now. Today's episode starts and ends with a little bit of a discussion around the FCS and then D2 top 25 preseason polls. And in the middle, we have the three-headed monster that is UAPB's women's basketball team. I had to double back to this topic after yesterday's conversation, but let's kick it off with the FCS preseason top 25. North Carolina Central and FAMU made the preseason top 25 poll. And one reason I love the preseason top 25 poll is that it kind of makes the idea that football is back more than just a hope. And I know the countdown starts around media day, and I can look at a calendar. I don't need any individual item or any individual event to tell me that football is on the horizon. But when I start seeing preseason polls, I get excited. My juices start flowing. I'm like, man, we are really back in football season. I've seen some preseason NFL games. I'm about to see real college football next week. Ladies and gentlemen, we are a week away from real collegiate football. Do you understand that? So preseason polls get me excited. And we had two HBCUs who made this list, North Carolina Central and FAMU. Now, I expected North Carolina Central to make this list. That was no surprise to me, so I won't start off discussing them. However, FAMU did catch me a tad bit off guard. If you would have told me there was two HBCUs who made the list, I would have said FAMU. I would have said North Carolina Central. I think those are the two teams that if you don't have a dog in the race, you kind of expected those two and probably nobody else. I don't really think I would have suggested any other school, and I'm not going to call anybody out by name, but actually I will call somebody out by name. And this is not for the whole fan base, but this is for whoever that one specific person was. When I said that I had to wait and see about Jackson State, they tried to call me an idiot because they were top 25 on some other polls. Well, you're not top 25 here. People have to wait and see. Sorry, I ain't going to sit here and lie to you. That one kind of got under my skin because you're going to say my pure hesitancy makes me idiotic. All right. This ain't for the whole fan base, but to whoever that one person is, I hope you check this out too. I hope that you're an everydayer. Thank you for the listen, though. Now, that being said, the reason that FAMU kind of surprised me is because since the Rattlers have announced that they're going to have their schedule the way that they're going to have their schedule, I've had it in my mind and I vocalized it just a week, maybe a week and a half ago. I don't think they're going to get much national praise. Do I think that matters to them? No. In the grand scheme of things, does it matter at all? No, because I believe that no HBCU should truly try to go for the FCS playoffs or any of that other stuff, the polls. That means nothing to HBCUs, truthfully, because they have their Celebration Bowl. So that's where you're always aiming to, and that doesn't impact it, but it does feel good to get national praise. I didn't feel like they were going to be able to get that, and I vocalized it when discussing Jeremy Musa and why I felt like he wasn't on the preseason Walter Payton Award watch list. I stand true in that. I do believe that it's going to be hard to get national awards, but their inclusion on the top 25 preseason list made me think of something I didn't think of before. What if FAMU just starts in the top 25? See, I said they couldn't get national praise, and I did mean polls as well. I didn't think they would be on here. They're currently 25 on this list. What if they just start there? Then all they have to do is continue to handle business. I think one thing that'll be important is you have to definitively beat Jackson State. Now, Jackson State did get some votes for this. They weren't on the top 25, but they did get some votes. I think they might have been around the 30 range or something of this sort. But I think you need to definitively beat Jackson State because the next week you're going against South Florida. See, the hope is that you beat JSU and now you move up to a 23, a 22, and then maybe you come back and who knows how you look against South Florida. That's a Division I opponent. Maybe you look really good, maybe you look poor, but a poor performance wouldn't hurt you that much, you would hope. But overall, this is just not something I thought of and not something that I would have projected. I'm thinking of FAMU earning their way into the top 25, which I do believe will be difficult. But them already being there and sustaining their spot is significantly more achievable. I do believe that dominating within the conference, dominating the out-of-conference schedule outside of South Florida is going to be extremely important. It might even be a prerequisite to them staying within the top 25. But I do think it'll do wonders for them as far as moving up on the list because the national praise that or the criticism that I believe they'll get from the national, whether that's writers or just, just coaches, any of those things, I do believe will be mitigated by just being dominant. If you just dominate, people can't really talk about you for real. People talk less about your strength of schedule when you're just dominant. When you're squeaking by occasionally, then people have things to say. But he's like, man, okay, yeah, I'm dominating these people. I might get by just a little bit with these people. I might beat them by 2 touchdowns less, but I'm winning by 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns on a regular basis. Things of that nature. Now, as far as North Carolina Central goes, they're 19, and that's no surprise to me because they ended last season on the top 25 list. They're returning a large amount of their players. They're returning, most importantly, who some people might call the best defensive back in the FCS. I have heard him be called that in Khalil Baker. You're returning the the MEAC Offensive Player of the Year in Davius Richard in one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. Yeah, you're going to be top 25 again. It's not as if you came through with a whole new team and it's like, okay, let's see if you got the magic, Coach Oliver, to put it together. This is more so about sustaining. So if their team is about sustaining, it's no surprise to me that they were able to sustain their spot in the top 25 from the end of the season to the beginning of this season. This was expected. FAMU was a surprise, and I'm glad that it had me change my thought process a little bit. As far as other HBCUs who did get votes but weren't able to make it into the top 25, you had Jackson State, North Carolina A&T, Southern, and Howard, who are all able to get votes. Now, moving forward, we're going to take a quick hiatus, a quick break from discussing polls because the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff and their women's basketball team has a real scary 3-headed monster heading into the 2023-24 season. And I want to thank Light on College for putting up a graphic that really showcased it. We'll break down why this could be a game changer, not just for the Lady Lions, but then also for the conference as we move forward with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Nutrafol. And listen, I understand that hair thinning can be a great cause of insecurity. Now you have a hat collection because you don't want people to see that you're having thinning hair. I get it. But with Nutrafol, all it takes is 6 months and you will see results. They are the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement. They're going to thicken your hair. They have clinically been shown to improve your hair growth. Now, all you have to do is go to Nutrafol.com. That is Nutrafol.com/men. And you can take a hair health wellness quiz, which will identify the causes of your thinness and everything in between. So the first step to making sure you have thicker hair, making sure you feel good walking out the house with no hat on is going to Nutrafol.com/men. Nutrafol.com/men. Use the promo code Locked On College and find out why over 4,000, yes, you heard me, 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol. As we keep on rolling on today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day, every day for my everydayers. Tomorrow, we'll be discussing some of the Black College Football Player of the Year snubs and headliners. So you want to be on the lookout for that. And then I also think we might introduce a new program either tomorrow or the day after, but it'll be coming up soon where we'll do this new program. Now, University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff women's basketball team, they come into 2023-24 with a three-headed monster that we all need to be looking out for. Now, Jackson State has yet to be fully dethroned. I understand the Southern Jaguars were the tournament champions last year, and I will not take that away from them. I'm not trying to change. That is the paramount thing, and that is the reason they were able to make it into the NCAA tournament. However, Jackson State was 17-1 last year. I think two-thirds of their victories within the conference were by 20 or more points. The next closest person to them was 12-6. So they were 5 games better in the conference than anyone else. They defeated everybody. They only lost to Prairie View A&M in the regular season. They ended up losing to Southern by a point in the tournament final. They were the most dominant team. And excuse me if I still consider them to have been the best and the team you need to dethrone. I don't think they've been fully dethroned. Remember, I put that keyword fully. No, they didn't win the tournament, but for the fourth or fifth year in a row, they've been the champions and the best team within the conference. So I think they need to be dethroned. However, I do think that UAPB has a triumvirate of really talented players that has the ability to do this. Now, this is the type of big three that you get excited about. You start throwing words out there like elite. I say words like game-changing because I do believe that this is the type of trio that you feel can lead you to a championship. On yesterday's episode, we discussed Starr Jacobs. Now, I won't discuss her at length today because she shares the spotlight with 2 other really talented women. So if you want to hear more about Miss Jacobs and why I do believe that she embodies star and legend, all you have to do is go to yesterday's show. Just wait for the next, 10 to 13 minutes that I'll probably be discussing on today's episode. But Starr Jacobs comes over from UTA, University of Texas at Arlington. Shout out to the AMA. She comes over from there, and she is an absolute legend at that program. The only player to achieve some of the things she's done. Not the only player, but a record-setting player in her first year there. She's done everything that you needed to. And I truly do believe that Jacobs deserves to be in the SWAC preseason player of the year competition or conversation, I should say, because she was a player of the year the last 2 seasons that she played basketball, which was just last year and the year prior to that. And it wasn't as if she was on the D2 level. She was in the same Division I. You don't have to worry about, she's stepping up in competition. We don't know how that will translate. It's not the same. You can't be a big fish in a small pond. She's done it on the same level. However, she's new to the conference, really new, as in she just came in, yesterday, maybe 2 days ago at this point, depending on when this comes out and all the news and whatnot. But it's been less than a week. So I don't know if they'll even have her in there in the SWAC preseason player of the year. However, I also want to see if she's on the SWAC all-conference team because she has shown herself to be that talented, but she's new, and I don't feel like they typically put players who are transfers in. I do believe that her talent does warrant consideration of an exemption because it would be, I've ran down her resume. That sounds like a player who deserves to be an all-conference player, even if she hasn't been playing at UAPB yet. Now, I'll give you another player of the year contestant, preseason, right? Zaay Green. She was actually the preseason SWAC player of the year last season. However, she wasn't able to play. Now, if she can bounce back, you're looking at 2 player of the year type caliber players. That's what you're looking at. 2 player of the year caliber players on one squad, one in the front court, one in the back court. But you look at Jacobs and what she was able to do in 2021 to 22, which was the last season that she played in, and you have 15.8 points per game, over 2 steals per game, nearly 5 assists per game. And both of those, all 3 of those, were good for best on the team. slightly under 8 rebounds a game, totaled out over 200 in the season. That was good for slightly good for second. She was only 2 behind first place, who had 204, and that was a center, right? And she's doing this from the guard position on the that's where she's listed. So you're looking at Zaay Green, who attacks or changes the game in multiple ways. You're looking at Starr Jacobs, who also changes and affects the game in multiple ways. Then you're looking at Coriah Beck, who was an all-tournament player last year in the SWAC for what she was able to do during the SWAC tournament. With Green out throughout the year, she was kind of the heartbeat of the team, leader in points, really good, honestly, really good defensive rebounder. She was second on the team in that. She ended up being fourth because her offensive rebounds were lower than others. But on the defensive boards, there weren't many people on that team that were better than her. And they had 2 centers who were really good at collecting rebounds last year. And she actually rebounded 1 if we're only speaking defensively. So I thought that Beck, it's important. Here's the thing that I think is important about this trio is that you have 3 players who don't only score, right? Excuse me. So looking at Jacobs' quick story, and you hear this more at depth if you do rewind to yesterday's episode, but she had to change her game where she had to focus a little less on scoring, right? She still scored a lot, but she then came up and was able to up her rebounds, her assists, her steals. She was able to get so much better at all of those things. And all 3 of these women are pretty good at pickpocketing. You had Jacobs, Beck, and you have Green. Green had a little over 2 per game. You had Beck, who was second in steals on the team last year. And you had Jacobs, who was, you ever seen Now You See Me? That's literally what she was like on defense. And it led to her being an all defensive player in the conference last season. So this is a triumvirate that I'm extremely excited to see. If you are a Lady Lion fan, you should be excited with the idea of a potentially elite big 3. That's what you have. And this is the 3 that I would be excited to see if they can knock off Jackson State. But moving forward, forget about knocking people off. We're going back to these polls. I'm not done. I'm not finished discussing the top 25 polls. However, I will leave North Carolina Central and FAMU alone. Instead, we'll go to the D2 level and look at Virginia Union and Benedict College as we continue with Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. We have 2 Division II HBCUs who made the top 25 list with a little bit of interesting placements. You know, this is a bit different than the FCS list. I'm not surprised at the inclusion of Virginia Union. I'm not surprised at the inclusion of Benedict College. I would have expected both of those. Matter of fact, I probably wouldn't have been surprised if they had anybody else. The D2 ranks are way better for HBCUs on a national level, right? I just feel like you see more competitive HBCUs on a D2 level than you do on the FCS level. Maybe it's because they actually get to be a part of the playoff system, so context and situation, it just looks a certain kind of way. But I love the national landscape for HBCUs on a D2 level way more. I find the placement of both of these teams interesting. I'll say that. And when I say interesting, it's not a, that's interesting, or why would they do that? It's not something like that. It's not that I disagree with it. It's not that I'm confused with it. I really mean interesting in the denotative way. I'm interested in this. This causes me a little bit of intrigue because, listen, I took psychology my last semester in college. And I'll tell you what, it got ended by COVID, right? Oh, well. But I wish I would have done it earlier. I wish I would have gotten a real semester to be able to do it for a couple of reasons. But one of the biggest reasons that I wish I would have done that is because I found myself to be way more interested in the thought process behind things as I'm getting older. Why did you do the things you did? Why did you say the things that you said? Why did you make the decision to place this team where it is? Now, a lot of times, one of my favorite rappers is J. Cole, and he's once said, like, I don't have the answers, you know? Like, he has a lot of questions. He don't have all the answers and things of that nature. I feel like Sway, I don't have the answers. And a lot of times I'm not exactly looking to provide the answers. I'm more so look to just pose the question because I'm curious. If the answer comes to me, it comes to me. Maybe it doesn't. But most times I am pretty interested in just asking these questions. For example, Benedict College, you moved from 12 at the end of last season to 17 at the beginning of this season. How much of that had to do with Eric Phoenix being gone? I don't know the people who are doing this, so I can't answer that. But I do think that's a question that should be asked. That's something that should be looked at. How important is your quarterback play? Of course, you have a great defense. Everybody trusts in that. But Eric Phoenix was your quarterback. And losing your quarterback is the type of thing that does warrant a 5-spot drop from the postseason poll to the preseason poll. And it's not all about what you did wrong. It's not. I understand that. When I ask these questions, it's not as if it's the isolated cause. And that'll really be shown when we get to Virginia Union. Actually, I think this might be a better example of this not being an isolated cause. You look at Eric Phoenix leaving Benedict College and you lose your quarterback. Okay, cool. That's a knock. People are going to sit there and be like, okay, we're not quite sure about the quarterback play. And that was an important part of every team. You went undefeated last year. New quarterback. We'll see what you're able to do now. Cool. I got you. But you might also have a team ahead of them that just got better. Doesn't mean they even got worse. I don't know if they dropped 5 spots because they feel like they're 5 spots worse. Maybe feel like they got worse by 2 or 3 spots. But these other schools, they were like, man, these teams got so much better. We had to place them there. So it's not isolated. I don't want to make it seem like only losing Eric Phoenix makes them so much worse. Then again, you also have to remember that they are still top 20. And they're top 20 right there along with, that's the number, they were 12 to 17. So this year they are 17 in the preseason poll. I want to make sure that I did say that. And then they're also sitting there right next to Virginia Union. And I believe that not winning the CIAA probably hurt them a little bit last year in the preseason polls. Going into this year, I would be asking the question, well, how much is Jada Byers going to do this year? Because this is no disrespect to Jada Byers. I think he's fantastic, and he'll probably have a fantastic season. I just don't know if he has that fantastic season. It's like the running back who runs for 2,000 yards. I don't think he's going to do it again. Do you? When Adrian Peterson ran for 2,000 yards, I didn't think he was going to do it again. So, of course, I'm talking about some sort of regression. However, do I think that means he won't be impactful? No. Does that mean I don't think he'll be elite? No. I just don't think that he hits 2,000 yards again. Now, sometimes it's important to use these type of conversations and these type of analogies to kind of push these conversations, because when you talk about regression and you mean it literally, and you're not just counting on somebody to be bad, a lot of times people hear regression and think, oh, you're going to be bad. No, I just don't think you'll be as productive as you were last year, because it's difficult to do once. I don't know if you do it twice. How much will those stats regress? And I like to say stats because when you say the numbers regress, I think people can digest that a little better. I'm not attacking Jada Byers. I think he is fantastic. But I also don't know if he's able to put those numbers up. I think I might have said that enough for you to understand my point now at this juncture. But how much are those numbers going to regress? And what kind of impact will that have? I'll use Adrian Peterson again. When he goes from 2,000 yards to whatever he had the next year, are they able to supplant that production with passing game? Is the defense getting a little better? Now you force some more turnovers. You have shorter fields. Maybe you're just stopping them 3 and outs. You're having shorter fields because of punts that aren't coming from the 25, or excuse me, coming from the 25 as opposed to the 47. These are all things that need to be watched. Once again, these are not isolated circumstances that impact the team, but they are questions that I would ask. The other HBCUs on the D2 level that got votes are Fayetteville State, Tuskegee, Fort Valley, and on here they say Morehouse. I'm going to choose to believe that 1 and 9 Morehouse from last year didn't get more top 25 votes than Fort Valley. I'm going to choose to believe that meant to say Albany State. That's what I'm going to choose. And I don't know. But to make it overall full circle, one of the reasons that I love the top 25 polls, whether it's D2, whether that's FCS, is it tells you what people think. What are people projecting nationally? How do people view North Carolina Central, FAMU, Virginia Union, Benedict College? How are they being viewed? They're being viewed as one of the best teams on their subdivision. If you're in that top 25, honestly, I'll say top 25 and a couple of spots after that, you are one of the best teams. Can you maintain that? Now we have preseason expectations. I expect FAMU to be one of the best schools in the country next year. I expect North Carolina Central to do the same. I expect Benedict College and Virginia Union to repeat the performances that they had in 2022 when they were one of the best in the country. So I appreciate these FCS polls almost as much as I appreciate, the FCS and the D2 polls almost as much as I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every single day, my everydayers are the heartbeat of the show. Thank you for that. Tomorrow, we'll be breaking down the Black College Football Player of the Year snubs and headliners. So make sure you're looking out for that. But in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.